Islam, Moors.
Islam.
Just rise and do the honors. 5 on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe.
Allah, the Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth.
Truth.
Peace.
Peace.
Freedom.
Freedom.
And justice.
And justice.
Allah is our protector.
Allah is our protector.
Our guide.
Our guide.
And our salvation.
And our salvation.
By night.
By night.
And by day.
And by day.
He lives in her holy prophet.
He is in her holy prophet.
Noble Dwali.
Noble Dwali.
Amen.
Amen.
Islam. Yes. So, you want to say Islam to all the Moors out there listening in, and unconscious Moors listening in. We also want to say big Islam to Brother Tez for holding down a good 40 minutes yesterday, 40-minute recap of the last class when we dealt with the taxes and all that type of stuff. So when we get that, yeah, that was one that you weren't there. And that one was pretty good. Over at RS by Midland.
That was last week, maybe?
The week before. Right? So that was basically just dealing with the origin of taxes, income tax, how it started up, when it started up, etc., etc. One of the things also to note is that a lot of things that are done politically by the United States corporate government was between the time frame of 1913 and like 1940. A lot of their setting up of things, right? Setting up other corporations and whatever else that they're setting up, right? And to recognize that all those things that they did are counter moves to what Noble Drew Ali was doing around that same time, right? So we're going to go to an excerpt from the Divine Warning by the Prophet for the Nations. I love my people and I desire their unity and mind back to their own free and national divine standard, because day by day they have been violating the national and constitutional laws of their government by claiming names and principles that are unconstitutional. If Italians, Greeks, English, Chinese, Japanese, Turks, and Arabians are forced to proclaim their free national name and religion before the constitutional government of the United States of America, it is no more than right that the law should be enforced upon all other American citizens alike. So when Italians, Greeks, English, Chinese, Japanese, Turks, and Arabians come to nations or governments that aren't their original government, they have to go through the naturalization process. And in them going through the nationalization process, they have to proclaim their free national name, right, with wherever they're going to, right? So when they come over here, they would say that they're whatever American. Chinese American, Italian American, right? So if those people who are foreigners here are forced to proclaim their free national name, right, to the corporate government, then even the corporate government has an obligation to have everybody, all the people who are considered citizens under this government should proclaim their free national name too. But everybody does except Negro, black, colored people, right? Now we go to 101 questionnaire number 86. Name some of the marks that were put upon the Moors of Northwest by the beast or Satan in 1774. Negro, black, colored, and Ethiopian. In all reality, what is a Negro? A Negro is a four-legged animal. What is meant by the word black? Black, according to science, means death. Right? So we were talking about in a few other classes ago that there's law is a science, right? That's why Noble Drew Ali said that this movement was civic, right? But the movement that was civic was called the Moorish Temple of Science, but it was a civic movement, right? Which means that civics and science are relative, right? So the science that treats positive law is called jurisprudence, right? So jurisprudence, Jurisprudence, is the science that treats positive law, right? So because it's the science that treats positive law, it's saying that there is a negative law that exists, right? And that jurisprudence doesn't treat it, right? At positive law, a stateless person, minority, Negro, black, colored, etc., is labeled civil liter mortuus. And them being labeled civil liter mortuus means that they're dead. So black, according to science, means death. It's not going to be broken down in the 101 questionnaire, because the 101 questionnaire isn't necessarily to teach you. It's a little encyclopedia that you're supposed to go through it, see stuff in there that you never heard before, and then go research. And then when you research, that'll bring you to other information that is relative to, knowing the truth about our birthright and all of that, right? So we're talking about this the shooting that went on yesterday, right? And that if we went to the shooting, right, and we took a tally of the people, right, what's your nationality? They're all going to come back that their nationality is black, right? Because there was a Hennessy party, there was a Hennessy block. That was the name of it, right? So it has nothing to do with civilized people, because civilized people don't block them. Civilized people direct schools. Civilized people have teaching institutions and medical institutions and businesses, and they don't get into the race game, right? They deal with things on a national perspective. They deal with things on a citizen perspective, right? So
You're saying the very nature of the party itself, you're saying, is
just the fact that
is an indication that what?
That the people who are doing it are civilly dead.
Oh, I see.
They're uncivilized.
Well, you're saying in that particular color of skin is what you're talking about?
Right. Well,
Because I've always been fascinated by this, but I've never really went into it.
So right.
I kind of took a peek with it.
Okay.
But it's something like me as a white person who always know this. Why every time I pick up the paper, I would specifically see this gender in this way, and it's fascinating me, but almost embarrassing to go into it.
Right. Because you don't want to point fingers at.
Yes, I'm very quiet about it, and I don't talk about it. But part of me is curious to the reason why, but at the same time, I don't even want to go into that curiosity. I'm just choosing not to see that.
Right. But a lot of it comes down to because they make though for lack of a better term, our people would make the claim that they're black people, right? That's their identity because the color of their skin, so they're black people. But that curtain behind you is black, and you've never seen anybody look like that curtain ever before.
Never.
Right? Okay. So like as you said, you identified yourself as well. As a white person, when I look at this situation, it's embarrassing, right? Now, if I ask you what your nationality is, what's your nationality?
My nationality is French Canadian.
All right.
I'm like half French, half Indian.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you know something about yourself that those people don't know. Because you didn't call yourself, you didn't say I'm white. You named a geographical location that has a flag, they have a language, they have customs. You could mention it to anybody and they're going to be like, oh yeah, I know what that is, right? I know where that is. I know what language those people speak. I know that there was, I know that there was a battle of Tours, right? That's connected to that landmass that has to do with other people on the planet and etc. If we go down the line, right, you ask anybody, they'll give you a geographical location of where they came from, right? They're not going to give you a adjective to identify themselves, right? Yeah.
What's the first thing they do?
They call themselves black adjectives.
Oh,
like they're against all that, right?
Yeah. Well,
Well,
and that's something I've been experiencing lately because there's been a lot of African. Would that be a more conscious?
More. That's better than black.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of African. Well, I say a lot of African Americans. That have been coming in here lately, sharing some consciousness and some work. And I've been seeing this community, and I just had a couple of people in here yesterday where I said that there's African American gender that I've been seeing coming in here, and you can connect with some of these people too at the same time as connecting with us. But I can see like a little bit of a community. So what's happened as I became a little bit more conscious in my journey, what I perceive is that I actually see a lot of consciousness in your bloodline, if I want to call it.
Right.
Yeah, there's actually quite a bit of it.
Right.
Yeah.
But
I'm trying to be, because every thought I have and everything I speak, I try to do for the best intent of humanity.
Right.
So I want to make sure that when I'm communicating, that I'm thinking and speaking, clean up my language.
Right.
Basically, what I'm trying to do. That's what I'm asking help
and
for.
that's why society is where it's at, because of language and people saying things that they don't know what they're talking about when they say something, right?
Well, I think as well as using certain terms and having certain terms reflect certain people's identities that aren't true.
Exactly.
Identities, i.e., calling someone black when really maybe they should be Trinidadian or French or something like that, right? So, but that is what we have come to understand as being part of the problem, right? Being sort of labeled, mislabeled, certain things, right? And that's where consciousness has started to, I think, come about, right? And the first step is to get it right in your mind. I would think at least sort of those terms.
Just like you're saying.
A geographical place.
Well, would be closer, but I mean, if I'm going to say to you I'm a black man, then who are you to then disagree with me?
No,
right?
Yeah.
In terms of the fact that if I'm lost to it to begin with, I can't expect
you'll just go with it.
I can't expect you to be bigger than that.
And a lot of people who are foreign to being around like Negro, black, colored people, right? Just like he's saying, you say, hey, I'm from, I'm French Indian, and he's gonna say, oh yeah, I'm black, and the person who has the nationality isn't gonna correct them, because if that's your position, if that's how you want to identify yourself, right? It's like there was like in Germany, for example, there's nothing called a black person. Like in their language, like that doesn't exist. There's nothing called a black man, a black woman, a black person, a black boy, a black individual. Like that's not what the people are called that have dark skin that live in Germany.
I'm starting to get this now.
Right?
Because I know, like, I travel all over the world.
Yeah.
And a Muslim would come to me and say, I'm Egyptian.
Right.
Or when I was studying with the Mayans in Chichen Itza, they would say, I am Mayan.
Right.
Right? So
Right.
they would have a specific label without necessarily
Describing
the
color of the skin.
And
Exactly.
I'm just getting all this right
Right.
now because not once have I ever had any of these places I travel where someone said,
I'm
know,
black,
I'm,
or I'm white, or I'm yellow.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, and you know, the thing with the labels is that majority of the labels that we've adopted are labels like it's saying in that what Noble Drawley brought, that some of the marks that were put on the Moors, which is the real name of dark-skinned people, right? Yeah. Right? Was Negro, black, colored, and Ethiopian. Right? So they took these people called Moors and labeled them something else and tried to bury the name that they really are, in order to create this paradox that the world is in now, where, you know, it's sunrise and people think it's sunset, and they go to sleep.
Well, and even
Right.
even better parallel, you said the other half of you was Indian, right? Which they've already said Indian
Right.
is a misnomer too.
Yeah.
Indigenous.
Well, yeah, or I could have said Mohican.
Well, but
Right.
that's right.
It is actually, it's got a similar
Some stigma to
That's
just
Because
like
my
black.
kids used to like make fun of me.
That's
or-
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's exactly.
Or they would
Yeah.
call me wagon burner.
Yeah.
Like a slave label
Right.
rather than a nobility type.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
but you see where we've gotten to, or at least where I've come to understand it from the reverse end, is when I used to walk the streets and they'd call me black or whatever, and there used to be a feeling that I would get from that when it was backed up in media, or on television, television or newspaper, and then you start seeing how these things connect to you and your label, and how they then can affect you in all other parts of your life, you start to realize how serious of a problem this is.
Right.
If you're conscious of it, right?
Yeah, I had a gentleman come in today, an African American, and he had a public enemy shirt on.
Yeah.
Right? First thing I thought was, who is this coming in the store?
Yeah.
But I chose to look past the public enemy
Right. The imagery.
label,
Yeah.
the imagery of
Yeah.
it, and I just kind of like, I choose not to do that.
Yeah.
Very young little brother, I took him downstairs to the aura machine. His aura was pure white, transcendent, chakras lined up, he was very conscious,
Yeah.
right, talking about crystals, he's very interested in this type of
Right.
stuff. So yeah, I chose to kind of like move that filter out of the way.
Yeah.
It was like, ooh, this guy's pretty cool, and he's wearing a public enemy.
Right. Exactly. The public enemy shirt becomes an add-on.
Yes.
Right.
It like brings a whole new program
Right.
to the software, and it's like, wow, now I got two things to work with, right?
Right. Right. So we were talking about this shooting, right? So we're just gonna fly through.
Thanks a lot, guys.
No
I
problem, no
really-
problem.
this is something
All right,
that-
no
that's
problem at all.
really, good for me to go into.
All right.
What was it?
With the shooting, right? So we're just gonna, just fly through this.
So,
Article.
Just to catch up on this, this happened because I don't watch a lot of
Yeah,
news. I try to stay up.
Yeah.
I saw something shooting yesterday.
Yeah, last night.
Last night. Today's Tuesday, so Monday.
Monday night.
10:40 Monday. They're
Yeah.
having a party.
Yeah,
Okay.
Block.
A Tennessee party.
yeah, like a block or
All right.
So, and okay, so this is a City TV article. Two people were killed and an infant was shot after gunfire erupted at a community barbecue in Scarborough on Monday night. Toronto Police Chief Bill Blair called the shocking act of violence unprecedented. Up to 19 people were shot at a party on Danzig Street near Morningside and Lawrence Avenues. Blair said the 3 others were injured as they tried to flee. There were up to 200 people at the party when the gunfire broke out. One person is in custody, Blair said at a news conference early Tuesday morning. This is not only unprecedented in Toronto, this is the worst incident of gun violence in my memory, Blair said. A lot of innocent people were injured tonight. Blair said an altercation led to an exchange of gunfire. A man in his 20s and a teenage girl were killed. The infant is expected to be fine. The man who is in custody, described as a person of interest, was also injured in the shooting. Witnesses said parties of this size were unusual for the neighborhood. There were a couple hundred people at the party. That really happens on this street, said area resident Maria. At least 6 people walked into the Root Valley Centenary Hospital and 4 more walked into Scarborough General while others waited for treatment at the scene. 7 people were taken to Sunnybrook Hospital and other patients went to St. Michael's Hospital. One of the injured was a 20-year-old woman who was shot in the back. An 18-year-old man and a 25-year-old woman were taken to a Scarborough hospital with gunshot wounds, while a 70-year-old man was among the 5 people taken to St. Michael's. I don't feel like it's people from our area. I feel like it's people who came into the area. It's an isolated incident, said Maria, adding she felt the neighborhood is still safe. Maria has lived in the area for 10 years and did not want to give her last name to City News. Resident Leighton Robinson, whose relative was among those hurt in the shooting, said he was shocked at the brazen nature of the shooting so close to a police station. 43rd Division is just up the road. If something can happen 3 blocks away of this nature, what does that say, he said. It was all hands on deck after the massive shooting. Police requested that paramedics bring a bus to hold the wounded. Paramedics that brought patients to hospital returned to Danzig to help others. There's no word yet on what sparked the shooting. The homicide squad, as well as the Guns and Gangs unit and the emergency task force are investigating. Mayor Robb issues a statement in the wake of the shooting violence. I am shocked and disgusted by this senseless act of violence. While we try to understand this tragic event, I want to assure residents that this horrific criminal behavior will not be tolerated in our city, he said. On behalf of all Toronto residents, I would like to extend our thoughts and prayers to the victims, their families, and friends. Anti-gun advocate Councillor Kristen Wong Tam also spoke out after the shooting. When a shooting like this takes place in Toronto, it actually really scars Toronto, she said. We are going to have to ramp up our strategy at City Hall in terms of our call for stricter gun control. City Council has been debating the merits of banning bullets. The idea first floated to Councillor Adam Vaughan in the wake of the Eaton Centre and Little Italy shootings, is set to go before the Executive Committee for consideration. Right.
Who was the one who had mentioned that they were going to have to get tougher? Tammy something? Just that last paragraph.
Kristen Wong Tam.
Who is what?
Anti-gun advocate.
Oh, okay.
She's a counselor though.
Okay.
When a shooting like this takes place in Scarborough, it actually really scars Toronto. She said, we are going to have to ramp up our strategy at City Hall in terms of our call for stricter gun control. City Council has been debating the merits of banning bullets. The idea first floated by Councillor Adam Vaughan in the wake of the Eaton Centre and Little Italy shootings, is set to go before the Executive Committee for consideration. Right?
Here they have the Henny Blocko, 50 bottles of cognac.
The Henny Blocko, right? So at the Henny Blocko,
They have 50 bottles of
Cognac,
like that, I guess that's the theme of it or something or whatever.
They had 50 bottles of cognac.
I guess, like, I don't know, right? Like, you know, we're just speculating based on what's presented. Mind you, what's presented as, like, that's people's Twitters and stuff. That's people who are at the thing Twittering.
And what was interesting
Right?
too for me was that, in terms of starting to feel a little more enlightened, and just even mean, who knows how many thousands of comments were made?
Right.
Who's to say that these comments, like my feeling is now is I'm trying to understand what comments, of how a certain comment
It's
is
going to affect, yeah, yeah.
You know, maybe someone was saying, you know, this was some of the best time I ever had. It's too bad, you know what I mean?
Right, right.
This is a great neighborhood.
Yeah.
There's never been a problem ever here.
Yeah.
You know, it almost feels like there's a sense of. It feels to me like there's a sense of an expectation of more.
Yeah.
Like this is what really should happen. This is what really the
Yeah,
neighborhood's really about.
Right.
You know, but we
Right.
hope for more or
Right.
something like that. Right? Yeah. I don't
I
know.
mean, it's like, well, for example, like when you look at the barbecue, for example, right? Or the block, right?
That was another thing too. I was thinking, how come it was a shooting at a block party rather than a shooting at a barbecue?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't remember there was
Like
something that touched me.
I don't know if it's like a street festival or whatever.
What did they call it though? Did they call it a block?
Well,
Well, interchangeably,
yeah, they're using barbecue and block off.
barbecue and waffles, that's
Yeah.
what it's that.
Right.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. What I was saying to you, whatever report I got seemed to put a negative connotation on the fact that
Right.
it was like a blocko or a
Yeah, like here it says community barbecue on this,
right.
right?
But
No.
I'm saying on the news it was shooting at a Scarborough street party.
Right? Now
Right.
you can probably go back to Year of the Gun, right?
I remember that.
Okay, so you could probably just so people online who maybe never heard of this stuff before, right? Google search Year of the Gun Toronto, right? And you might find this quote from Bill Blair back then, right? This is not only unprecedented in Toronto, this is the worst incident of gun violence in my memory. I think he also said that when Jane Kruger got shot, and I think he also said that in the Eastern Center shooting, right?
It's funny that you picked up on that too.
Right.
Because I felt to myself by making the situation seem worse than it is, right?
Now, mind you, all these people getting shot, it's not the situation is bad. When you got 20 people shot, right, at a block or a barbecue or whatever, right? Another thing too to keep in mind is that witnesses said parties of this size were unusual for the neighborhood. The parties might be unusual, like as far as the size, but this is a yearly block that they have. This is not a first time thing that they're doing.
They're saying people as far as London.
Right? Yeah, like people come to this thing. Right? It's a community thing that however it started, I don't know. But I know that it's something that at least for the past 3 years has been going on. From my memory. Yeah, from what I know, that this place has this barbecue, blocko, community barbecue, whatever they call it, every year. Right? It never had a few hundred people before, but it's a community event that happens. You know what I mean? Right? Now, Noble draw lead back to the divine warning, right? Said that in those days the United States will be one of the greatest civilized and prosperous governments of the world. But if the above principles are not carried out by the citizens and my people in this government, the worst is yet to come, because the great God of the universe is not pleased with the works that are being performed in North America by my people. And this great sin must be removed from the land to save it from enormous earthquakes, diseases, etc. Right? So this sin of calling yourself something that you're not violates all divine principles. That's why we stress to people that if you don't do anything else, put Ellerbe on your name, right? Whatever name it is that you have. If it's a European name, put hyphen, L or Bay after that name. Or find yourself to nearest Moorish Science Temple of America and nationalize. And if you go there and they're trying to tell you, you know, you have to buy this and buy that before you can nationalize, turn around, walk out, don't even ask anybody anything. Like, the nationality doesn't work like that. Because these people are talking about, you know, calls for stricter gun control and things of this nature. That affects everybody.
You know what also is interesting? It's interesting that they don't want to take the guns away.
No.
Which would be,
yeah.
Which to me, in one sense, would be crazier. But it also seems to me would be almost, hey, it's not the bullet that killed anyone.
Right.
It was the gun that the bullet was in.
Right.
Yet they don't want to take the guns off the street.
Yeah.
They want to somehow make you feel like they want to stop giving out bullets.
Yeah, but then again, guns and bullets don't kill people.
Of course they don't. But right. I'm saying that to me almost speaks to that side of me that's saying this seems to be a mixed message that they're giving us, right? And the only, it's only a mixed message because they have their motive, right? And their motive is, you know, Toronto can't be seen as, you know, Chicago or something, right? Like, there can't be any relation between the violence somewhere else and the violence here, because, you know, Toronto is, you know, this is the home of the Blue Jays and the Maple Leafs and the Raptors, and, you know, we're a multicultural society and we allow everybody to come here, and, you know what I mean, we have Asian store owners that chase thieves down the street, you know, and all, to give this image of the quote-unquote city, which has nothing to do with the land. It's a private corporation. But it's interesting. It's very interesting that you said that to me, because I'm also thinking that there's also an attack on NBCs,
right,
as well, in a certain way, to this, on a different level, almost to sort of keep us. Sorry to interrupt you.
No.
To keep us in our place.
Right.
Right, because the area, the fact that it's been mentioned at Hennessy, all these sort of things are putting labels in places that I think it's not hard to understand who's probably at this barbecue.
Exactly.
Right? So I agree with everything you're saying on that one level, but it's still almost using us as the tool.
Yeah, well, let's go deeper, right? As to why are they using Negro, black, colored people as the tool, right? Because they're black, they're stateless, and you can be used. Just because you're, who's gonna hold these people accountable, right? Right now, we're not even talking about the shooting and all that stuff. We're just saying the people who are involved in that, right? Like, they're gonna say, for example, right, 2 people were killed and an infant was shot after gunfire. Like, what do you mean an infant was shot? Like, do you know that it's 10 o'clock in the night? You got an infant at a block up? Like, are you serious? It's 10 o'clock in the night. You have an infant. You're not a child or a whatever. Infant. Right? An infant is at the block up getting grazed by gunshots. Right? Black, without hope or alleviation. Gloomy, very dirty, soiled, angry, resentful, showing great misfortune, wicked, harmful, causing or deserving dishonor or censure, suffocation, to boycott.
Did they say, you said there was 2 people that got shot? Did they name those people?
Yeah, it came out today, I think. I'm not sure. No, this was. I got this morning.
Said there was someone, an 18 and a 25-year-old who got shot. I thought it sort of gave their names.
No, there was no names yet. There was no names yet. The only names was the people that they interviewed.
What were their names?
One lady was Maria, and one was Leighton Robinson. Right? So black. So we have to ask ourselves now, what now if the situation that happened is gonna have, the police chief talking about it's unprecedented and they can't believe that this happened, they're not looking highly on the situation. They're seeing it as a very bad situation, right? It's not positive, and they need to do something to counteract this problem that's happening. So it's a bad thing that they're trying to give the appearance that, well, when we step in, we're going to make things right, right? Is it really them, or is the people who have this label that, are taking infants to barbecue at 10 o'clock in the night, right? Is the problem really them because of the status? And the status, because of their dead status, they do dead things, right? They do things that are artificial.
Well, I think you made a brilliant point as to what it's about. I just wonder what, for us, I don't know. I don't know what to say.
Right? Now, the actions that these people take, like somebody, seeing somebody that they don't like or whatever, and seeing this as the opportunity. Don't forget, it's 10 o'clock at night, so you're not really going to be seeing where you're shooting at 10 o'clock in the night. No wonder 19 people could get shot, right? After all that Hennessy and cognac, right? And because don't forget, they're not only drinking Hennessy and cognac, but we know they have that push rolling up, right? Okay. GM Foods. GM Foods. The tomato fish. In 1991, so this is how far back we are. We're just finding about this right now. So in 1991, the company DNA Plant Technologies genetically engineered a tomato containing a gene from a fish, the Arctic flounder. The goal was to create a tomato more resistant to frost and cold storage. Experiments revealed the new gene did not help the tomato and it never made it to supermarkets. Right. Although it was a failure, these tomato fish, or fish tomatoes, created something of a scare among activists and the public. How can a fish and a tomato be combined? And how can that be healthy and safe? Some consumers may have had an image like this in their brains. Fish tomatoes never happened, but many foods in the United States today are genetically modified. BT corn, for example, is a large GM crop in the US. A gene from a bacteria, Bacillus thuringiensis, was inserted in the laboratory 14 years ago to combat the corn-eating worm. The corn became very popular and now makes up approximately 63% of the U.S. corn crop produced. All this from an NPR report. Soybeans, alfalfa, and cotton are also large GM crops in the United States. So considering corn and soy are key ingredients in corn syrup and vegetable oil, you probably ingested some GM foods today. These foods have been deemed safe to human health as well as the environment by the USDA. In fact, just yesterday, the USDA lifted all restrictions on the growing of a specific GM alfalfa plant, and more discussions will soon come down for sugar beets and corn. Right? Sugar beets now they're after, right? So if they can do this to fish, tomatoes, right, soybeans, alfalfa plants, etc., what do you think they're doing to this weed called Kush that these guys are smoking, right? Why smoking synthetic marijuana is a very bad idea. So this for all you Kush heads. The obscure chemical compound that blazed the path that leads to full-on adults like myself casually strolling into a beat-to-shit liquor store and saying, "I'll have one zombie matter, please," and while keeping a straight face, was developed by a Clemson University chemist named John Huffman. He was conducting research on cannabinoids for the U.S. National Institute on Drug Abuse. The compound he came up with was called JWH-018 because JWH are Huffman's initials and he's clearly egotistical. Check out this quote. "These compounds were not meant for human consumption. Their effects in humans have not been studied, and they could very well have toxic effects. They absolutely should not be used as recreational drugs." John Huffman.
So why is it out?
Right? Since JWH-018 started making the rounds, reports has been popping up left and right about the health risks associated with synthetic marijuana. Like the 3 teens in Texas who showed up at a Dallas emergency room with heart attack symptoms, for example. If teenage heart attacks don't rattle your cage, there's also the mother of 2 in Indiana who just died from smoking. Lowell, and this is from majestic.com. And this other one that we're going to read is from NWITimes.com. So NWITimes.com.
Before you start, did you mention that some people can get it at the store?
Yeah. So this is in the U.S. somewhere, right? Like those
Wow.
states where you can buy
Right.
weed over the counter.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
Right? And they're not just selling like what they grow over the counter now. Like
Right.
they're actually like making stuff and pushing that.
That's what you're saying. That's what this article has been sort of that you've been saying, right?
Right.
And this JWH guy, you were saying that he was doing some experimenting.
Yeah.
And he created something.
He created
a JWH something.
he created let's say hash oil. He created artificial hash oil,
Okay.
right?
That's what they're saying.
Right? And they're using the hash oil to enhance certain weeds that don't grow good.
That's what that article.
This is what the JWH thing is. 'Cause it's a compound that they grow with the weed. Right.
And now you're saying that they're combining the two.
Right? They're saying that it's not meant for human consumption, and that but they got fish tomatoes, right?
I see. I sense that what you're doing is you're
Just showing that.
showing the link.
Yeah, like it's
out
that
there.
if they're gonna be messing with the fish and stuff,
Oh yeah.
then that not necessarily the weed with seeds, just like anything else with seeds, it's probably not genetically modified, right? But all that Kush stuff is seedless, but that's supposed to be a plant that has buds and seeds, right? And everybody's smoking that.
Oh, the Kush.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like there's people who I know that sell weed, and they stop selling cess to sell Kush. because Seth's not selling. Only Kush selling. That's all people want. Nobody doesn't want anything with seeds in it. Right? But it's like everybody going out for the seedless grapes or the seedless watermelons or whatever. Right? Right. Christmas was just one more than a week away, and Eric Johnson was unsure if he would live to see it. He had been unable to keep food down for days because he was having trouble urinating. He believed his kidney was failing. I felt like my whole body was shutting down. I was so depressed, so overwhelmed, said Johnson, 29, of Lowell. Johnson had been smoking synthetic marijuana, known as fake, among his friends. The more he used, the worse the side effects. But it wasn't until he made the decision to stop that the worst effects kicked in, leaving him feeling like he was fighting for his life. Synthetic marijuana isn't new. In fact, the Indiana General Assembly passed 2 laws banning the substance. However, it continues to be sold in convenience stores and gas stations locally and across the state, available only if you ask for the product by name. Law enforcement officials said that the laws are only partly effective. They ban specific chemicals and manufacturers get around them by tweaking the chemicals. We've seen people arrested for it, said Sergeant Larry LaFleur, public information officer for the Porter County Sheriff Department. There's a little bit of the wild side, not a normal type of high. Legislation has been introduced in the General Assembly's current session to combat the chemical loophole. The bill identifies specific chemicals and compounds in synthetic drugs, including marijuana, and powerful stimulants sold as bath salts, but states that similar chemical compounds, known as analogs or homologs, also would be illegal. Johnson had struggled with drug use for almost 15 years, starting when he was 14. He had gone to some meetings and felt that he could handle his addiction. He had been clean for a few months when he said he began to use synthetic marijuana, thinking he found a loophole. He was in a local store when the person checked out in front of him asked for the product. He decided to try it too. Johnson said the markers of the synthetic marijuana are smart. The packaging clearly states the product is incense and not made for human consumption, but the different names on the packages are extremely similar to the names of popular strains of marijuana. For example, hydrotonic synthetic marijuana sounds similar to hydroponic marijuana. He started using slowly, smoking only once or twice a day, but eventually the use was constant. He started to feel anxious, to the point he would vomit. I was really getting frightened and started to look into why I was feeling this way. I was looking at every aspect that was in front of my face, he said. It frightened me and I had to quit. Synthetic marijuana has been blamed in deaths across the country, including Illinois and Minnesota, according to published reports. Florida's Poison Control Center website says the drug causes extreme nervousness, a fast heartbeat, increased blood pressure, tremors, vomiting, hallucinations, and seizures. I wish I had known what I was doing before I made the choice to do this, said Johnson, who worries teenagers who use this drug might not be able to deal with the side effects as well as he did. I will definitely tell people to steer clear. It's dangerous, it's addictive, and it's nothing like marijuana. I would go back to the stores and ask them not to sell it. Johnson has been sober for more than 30 days and tries to attend a Narcotics Anonymous or Alcoholics Anonymous meeting every day. He is the sponsor and working through the program, yada yada yada.
So it's basically the reverse effect of real marijuana.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah,
Right.
it wouldn't have, if it was any part real marijuana, it wouldn't lock up that other kind.
Right. So with the people engaging in these things that are foreign to them, it's no different than people run into the church and they think that's their salvation because Jesus came to them.
Sorry, what's that sign again?
That when people go towards religion, the church or the mosque or whatever, right? They're going for that artificial marijuana, right? They're not going for what is connected to them, right? Like weeds are herb, like dill and parsley and thyme and anything else, oregano and all that, right? So it's for consumption. Like they're saying that the other weed isn't for consumption. You shouldn't even think about smoking that. But that's the hottest thing on the market.
Right, so since oregano, parsley, and everything is to us vital, to connect it back to your point with the church and that synthetic healing place,
Right.
what's our real one? Just so I remember.
Well, I mean, well, ultimately the real temple or whatever itself, right? Not the external place that we choose to go to, right? And with it's just like with what Noble Drawley is saying with the identity thing. You know what I mean? Calling yourself Negro black colored is the synthetic marijuana, because that's not what it is, right? When you see like, but there's few youths that we talk to from like programs and stuff, you know, and that they're on the push, they burn that hard, and they straight say that when you smoke that you're just lead. Like you're just lead. You don't feel like doing anything. You don't want to do anything. You just, and when it wears off, you just want to get back to that lead spot again, right? So they have that in their system. Plus they have the cognac and the Hennessy, and then it's 10 o'clock in the night. You're gonna hit 19 people and not hit the person that you're going after, right? But that's not logical, right? It's because of the hex, the Negro black colored hex that they got on this, right? That once you call yourself this thing, you do have a life of gloomy, without hope or alleviation, right? Even the same youth man that's bun enough, they're gonna say, oh yeah, he's hopeless, right? He can't get out of that situation. He lives in the hood and poverty and the whole all the works, right? And in them saying that, that's a ritual, and then he's gonna buy into it by saying, yeah, I'm black, and yeah, I'm black, I'm this, I'm Negro, I'm colored, right? I'm African. Putting that hex on now, because before it was just in the ether, right? But then when you tag it onto yourself, now it actually becomes part of your being now. That's why Noble that and people get mad that Noble Drawley's work is repetitive, and the reoccurring theme is you're not Negro black colored. Why do they have to say that all the time? We know that we're not that. Well, if we know that we're not that, we wouldn't be calling ourselves that in 2012 still. Yeah. They're not that. Mm. Right? So, when Noble Drawley was doing his work, there was people around him that were claiming that they were nationals, but they were really nationals. They were black. They were willing participants of the black game, right? That's why they took them out, because this thing of proclaiming your nationality, right, is something that is international. It's not something that is new, that just came about, right? This is something that is international, and with us being international, we have to, because like we made the statement that we're the founders of civilization,
You gotta act right.
right? So if we're the founders of civilizations, that means we're international, right? If you're going to call yourself nation of gods and earths, right? You can't say that the people, if you're a nation of gods and earths, the people that belong to your nation can't be called gods and earths. They have to be called nationals if you're calling yourself a nation, right? If you're saying that you're a nation of Islam, you can't say that those people are Muslim. How are you going to say that's a nation, but then you're going to say that the people's title is a religious title? The people are Islamic, right? It doesn't work like that. If you're going to say that you're a nation, then you have to align yourself with national principles.
What is it? What's the word again? Is it an adverb or something?
Well,
Saying
adjective,
it's like it's
right? Adjective
Islamic,
describing the
but-
thing, right?
Pardon? Adjective, sorry. Well, adjective, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is rights of indigenous people. Be of a general and permanent character, class A. Civics instruction and association, law, order, and governmental principles. Come and link yourself back with the families of nations. Preface by Grand Chief Nature L. Bay, edited by Taj Tweet Bay. Great Seal MST of A, North Gate, Northwest of Mexico. Right, so that's this right here. About nationality. Nationality is that quality of being a confirmed and participating part of a nation. Those who are not a part of a nation have little or no considerations forwarded them when nations congress in council and confer to consider the economic and political affairs of the nation. If one is outside of the order of nations, then one is hard-pressed to expect the laws of the families of nations to secure one's right, or for the citizens of nations to come to one's aid or to one's service. This can be most crucially understood when one is in the need due to the negating effects of slavery, forced servitude, human rights violations, civil disorder, Islam family, or if one is under colonial occupation as presently exists in North America. The Moors of North America have been held to forced servitude and were, by deviance, placed outside of the constitutional fold of government by the European occupiers, who have branded the Moors as Negroes, blacks, colored, and Ethiopians, etc. It is definitely vital and important that the true birthright status of the people, Moors, be addressed in a more formal and documented political format, and given considerations on a more serious social, political degree and principle level. Thus, the subject matter and issue of permanent character comes into play within the arenas of national, international, and world affairs. Civiliter mortuus versus in full life. The social, political status and caste position of civiliter mortuus means dead in the eyes of the law. This is the past, present, and existing social and political status as assigned to all persons held under the brands and tags of Negro, Black, and Colored, etc. The 180 degrees opposite social and political status counter to civiliter mortuus is the superior and clear natural, social, political, and legal status of in full life. In full life was and is the uncorrupted, normal, and honorable status as held by the ancient forefathers of these same Moors, who have been calling themselves what they are not, i.e. Negro, Black, and Colored, etc. In full life is defined in H.C. Black's Law Dictionary on Ancient and Modern Jurisprudence as continuing in both physical and civil existence, that is, neither actually dead nor civiliter mortuus. Upon this social, political reality, and with moral and spiritual considerations, Noble Drew Ali, in brackets, Sheikh Sharif Abdul Ali, declared to the Moors, "Be yourselves." And so, we are here today to remind you of that change which must be fulfilled and is in your own best interest. And we're going to go again as to why is it in our best interest to deal with nationality and birthrights and to know who our ancient foremothers and forefathers are, is because they have an already prepared plan in order to get these books balanced. Right, King Alfred plan.
That added right there.
Yeah. Right. So we'll just we've gone through some of these before, but we'll just go through some more. Security page. It is patently impossible to discuss social engineering or the automation of a society, i.e., the engineering of social automation systems on a national or worldwide scale, without implying extensive objectives of social control and destruction of human life, i.e., slavery and genocide. This manual is in itself an analog declaration of intent. Such a writing must be secured from public scrutiny, otherwise it might be recognized as a technically formal declaration of domestic war. Furthermore, whenever any person or group of persons in a position of great power and without the full knowledge and consent of the public uses such knowledge and methodology for economic conquest, it must be understood that a state of domestic warfare exists between the said person or group of persons and the public. The solution of today's problems requires an approach which is ruthlessly candid, with no agonizing over religious, moral, or cultural values. You have qualified for this project because of your ability to look at human society with cold objectivity, and yet analyze and discuss your observations and conclusions with others of similar intellectual capacity without a loss of discretion or humility. Such virtues are exercised in your own best interest. Do not deviate from them. Silent weapon technology has evolved from operations research, a strategic and tactical methodology developed under the military management in England during World War II. The original purpose of operations research was to study the strategic and tactical problems of air and land defense with the objective of effective use of limited military resources against foreign enemies. It was soon recognized by those in positions of power that the same methods might be used for totally controlling a society, but better tools were necessary. Social engineering, or the analysis and automation of a society, requires the correlation of great amounts of constantly hanging economic information. So, a high-speed computerized data processing system was necessary, which could race ahead of society and predict when society would arrive for capitulation. Relay computers were too slow, but the electronic computer, invented in 1946 by J. Presper Eckert and John W. Mauchly, filled the bill. The next breakthrough was the development of the simple method of linear programming in 1947 by the mathematician George B. Danzig. Then, in 1498, the transistor, invented by J. Bowden, W. Britton, and W. Shockley, promised great expansion of the computer field by reducing space and power requirements. With these three positions of power strongly suspected, with these three in positions of power, strongly suspected that it was possible for them to control the whole world with the push of a button. Immediately, the Rockefeller Foundation got in on the ground floor by making a 4-year grant at Harvard College, funding the Harvard Economic Research Project for the study of the structure of the American economy. 1 year later, in 1949, the United States Air Force joined in. In 1952, the original grant period terminated, and a high-level meeting of the elite was held to determine the next phase of social operations research. The Harvard Project had been very fruitful, as it borne out of the publication of some of its results in 1953, suggesting the feasibility of economic social engineering. Engineered in the last half-decade of the 1940s, the now quiet war machine stood, so to speak, in sparkling gold-plated hardware in a showroom floor by 1954. With the creation of the Moser in 1954, the promise of unlocking unlimited sources of fusion atomic energy from the heavy hydrogen in seawater and the consequent availability of unlimited social power became a possibility only decades away. The combination was irresistible. The Quiet War was quietly declared by the international elite at a meeting held in 1954. Although the silent weapon system was nearly exposed 13 years later, the evolution of the new weapon system has never suffered any major setbacks. This volume marks the 25th anniversary of the beginning of the Quiet War. Already this domestic war has had many victories on so many fronts throughout the world. Political introduction. In 1954, it was well recognized by those in positions of authority that it was only a matter of time, only a few decades, before the general public would be able to grasp and upset the cradle of power, for the very elements of the new silent weapon technology were as accessible for a public utopia as they were for providing a private utopia. The issue of primary concern, that of dominance, revolved around the subject of the energy sciences. Energy is recognized as the key to all activity on Earth. Natural science is the study of the sources and control of natural energy, and social science, theoretically expressed as economics, is the study of the sources and control of social energy. Both are bookkeeping systems, mathematics. Therefore, mathematics is the primary energy science, and the bookkeeper can be king if the public can be kept ignorant of the methodology of the bookkeeping. All science is merely a means to an end. The means is knowledge, the end is control. Beyond this remains only one issue: who will be the beneficiary? In 1954, this was the issue of primary concern. Although the so-called moral issues were raised, in view of the law of natural selection, it was agreed that a nation or world of people who will not use their intelligence are no better than animals who do not have intelligence. Such a people are beasts of burden and stakes on the table by choice and consent. Consequently, in the interest of future world order, peace, and tranquility, it was decided to privately wage a quiet war against the American public, with an ultimate objective of permanently shifting the natural and social energy wealth of the undisciplined and irresponsible many into the hands of the self-disciplined and responsible and worthy few. Right? So the energy game that they run is based on Negro black colored people being Negro black colored people. And it's our, this is why Noble Drew said that all Moors are active, not passive. Because we have an obligation to go save these people. Because the only thing that's in plan for them is King Alfred plan. And that's it. And there's nothing else that is going to work for them to get them out of their position that they're in. Like, only through the Moorish, divine, and national movement will they be able to find salvation? And if they're not going for the Moorish Divine and National Movement, then let them receive their just reward. Because it's like when we look at all these people who went down to Afrofest, right? Paying $700, $800 to have a table or whatever, right? And then the Moors go down there, and then they just take over. And they're doing face painting, and they're doing martial arts demonstrations, and they're doing all these things, right, that are cultural in nature, right? But the people's mentality of it is that it's those guys doing it. So we're gonna go and we'll support those guys, right? Because but after the thing's done, everybody disperses, and they don't want to deal with national stuff anymore, right? It's like the nation of gods and herbs were there, right? And then the Moors are building with the nation of gods and herbs. But without Afrofest, they're not linking anybody. They don't link on that level, right? Nuapian, same thing. They don't link on that level. They don't link like every day. You know what I mean? They only link when it's convenient for them to, make the trip, make the drive, make the trip to go link. But other than that, like all these organizations, groups, right, is a pocket of energy that the system is just using, and they're just playing like this with it. And they're just sending it wherever they want, right? And they think that they're making a dent in the B system with black and African stuff. They think they're doing something to the system. They think they're putting a halt or a monkey wrench in the plan of the system, right? When majority of them that are making the claim of, if they're going to take the system out or whatever, have the same name as the system. Because the system is a European foreign occupier, squatter.
In fact, those same organizations might be organizations built around trying to take away from the very movement itself, right?
This is why when we go to, that's why the importance of, like, really going out and getting these people, because they really think that what they have is, true and divine, and it's going to get them out of whatever they're in, right? We talk about King Alfred Plan and the FBI and CIA, Department of Justice, infiltration of all these organizations, Black Muslims and Uru Movement and NAACP and all that, right? And we bring up the point that the Moorish Science Temple of America is not on the list in King Alfred Plan, right? Like, it's not on the list, but they got infiltrated by the FBI and the CIA and all that. So how is it that they're not on the list, but they got infiltrated? Like, everybody else is on the list. Black Muslims, SNCC, Congress of Racial Equality, mentioned Uru Movement, Group on Advanced Leadership, Freedom Now Party, Black Nationalists, Pan-African Movement. Like, everybody's on here. Everybody's on the infiltrated list. And the Moorish Science Temple of America was infiltrated. And there's like a 1,200-page FBI file just on the Moorish Science Temple alone. But they didn't make King Alfred Plan when they were infiltrated too. And we know that they don't fall under the Black Muslim category because we don't say that we're black. We know that it doesn't fall under a student nonviolent coordinator because this is not a student thing, right? that has nothing to do with the Congress of Racial Equality, because we don't teach the race game, right? There's nowhere that the Moorish movement would slot in to one of these 12 organizations that were infiltrated, right? And the only reason that it's not on here is because it would bring up the Prophet. And now people are going to know that there's this thing called the Moorish Science Temple of America that they never heard about ever before in their life. And they claim to be the most conscious people. They claim to be, seers, and they have the most strongest crystals to get the energy, the radiation out of the air from the computer and the cell phone and whatever. But you ask them about Noble Drew Ali and they just stare at you with a blank look on their face. Right? That's how important that is. This is a military document for the minority. In the event of widespread and continuing and coordinated racial disturbances, right, is some black people having a blocko shooting up the place. Isn't that a racial disturbance? So don't you think that these people could implement King Alfred plan to deal with that situation, regardless of who's out there? No different than the G20? Regardless of who's out there, regardless of what you were there for, you're getting corralled. They could have done a lockdown there. They do lockdown in schools when they're shooting. When there's a shooting in a school, they lock the school down. Nobody could leave for 5 hours.
I was doing a camp today and they did a practice.
A practice lockdown.
They
Right.
shut them, they turned the blinds down, they urged the kids to get under the table, you're under the table, it's a serious thing.
Yeah. Right?
Well, this is furthering the argument that there's more to this than
So much more.
there always is.
Has to be. Because it's
Because if it was that
a
important-
play.
If it was that important to catch these people,
Yeah.
or to shut this down, they would have done
It's I can't see it being
it. You think about it,
as
20
hard as they put it.
No,
You know what I
think
mean?
about it,
Like
think about this though, right? 20 people
Yeah.
shot.
20 people.
Well, I'm saying, whatever the number is though, right? You're looking
Right.
at a mass problem.
Yeah, like that's
And they're treating it as if it's a Sunday afternoon,
Get together, like.
yeah.
sort of that thing that sort of happens,
Right.
yet they're
But-
trying to imply that it's...
But again, remember that they can't do anything without the public's assistance. They can't move until the public starts flooding the phone lines and flooding the whatever, the tip line.
And that doesn't make
That's
sense
it.
to me because the thing is sort of, obviously in normal circumstances there will be a rise in behavior, right? More noise, more anything before all that happens. Even in let's take Afrofest for example, it's an organized festival. People know that there's going to be drumming involved, there's noise involved, and everything, and there's a mass load of people, more than the 25 block or whatever, right? That probably maybe has maybe 110 people.
Yeah.
The festival's winding down. It's a drum circle, and police basically end the whole thing. And if you think about it, Woodbine Park, or wherever we were, is secluded from the beaches, really. Because
Yeah.
we're not on the beach.
Right,
We're not
right.
near the neighbors or anything. But there's a complaint about noise
Right.
from neighbors.
Yeah.
Wouldn't there be at a block up?
Right.
Where are they? A crop circle or something? Like,
Right.
where are they? Outside the town? Like, how could there be such a big disturbance? You know what I mean? It's understandable on Afrofest or whatever.
Right.
But, like, people know it's winding down, but still, there's how many cops around the drum circle with like 30 odd people?
Yeah.
Makes no sense.
But then again, right, they're with Afrofest, they're protecting their property.
Right.
Right.
What's
They're
interesting
protecting
too,
their
is
assets.
Press last year, I think, was Queen's Park.
Yeah.
They got that out of there because supposedly there was a complaint because I had a friend that was a vendor there.
Yeah.
They got a complaint from there.
Oh,
That's
yeah?
why they went down to Woodbine.
Okay.
Right? So what I start to see is the same thing I saw with Caravana.
Yeah.
Was that what they did is they need to control
Right.
everything. At Queen's Park,
Yeah.
a little too much
Too-
in their
too-
back.
too much energy.
in their backyard.
Yeah.
See what I mean?
Yeah.
And really, there's too many points. To me, I don't know what Woodbine Park was like, but it's probably got to be strategically a lot easier, maybe to push them all into the water.
Yeah.
They got a problem. You know
It's
what I'm
something
saying?
like that.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
use
yeah.
like the horses and push everyone
Yeah,
in,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
But it's interesting that it moved to there. Now there's another issue. It's also interesting that they shut them down
Yeah.
in such a form because they didn't do that last year.
We got last year.
No, they didn't shut it. They didn't shut it down. They just complained. Like they just got everybody to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Well,
That's the
but-
thing. It was nicely done.
Yeah.
But my point was is that this block now, before it got shot up like that, there should have been a noise complaint. There should have been a lockdown before that. There should have been
Yeah,
a
but
lot of stuff.
it comes back to the thing though that if it's something that happens every year,
Yeah.
you know, it's everybody knows what's up, so it's not even really, you know what I
Like the
mean?
jazz festival is the same area as the Woodbine, the whole
Right.
beach area,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
there's never no complaint about those jazz festival noise when there's live bands out on the street
Straight.
banging
Yeah.
away.
Banging away, yo.
Even the bars, 'cause after they finish their little stage thing, they go
Yeah.
into
Yeah,
the
they go to the
bar
bar.
and continue the jazz festival all night
Right.
long.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm
Right.
saying. Like it's crazy how it escalated to that
Yeah.
without having some kind of complaint.
Right.
To me, there's never really a complaint, but they can just say that
There's
they
a
want to
complaint.
do their thing. They
Yeah,
want
yeah.
to show that they're in control,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
their power, like I'm
Right,
the
right,
one
right.
in charge. So
There was a complaint, so
Yeah.
we're here now.
and
type
if you
of-
ask
yeah.
them for a complaint, they can't give you anybody that
exactly,
complaint.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think it's what you were saying before about how they can't move without some even if it's a feigned
Yeah.
sort of, oh, we got a call.
Yeah, yeah,
We've got to have a reason
Yeah.
for our actions.
Yeah. And then that's how, you know, because again too, like we have to,
And this is why they shouldn't start to interrupt
No, no.
I think are so dangerous. Because
Right.
once it puts a people, they mention an infant. That to me, I should realize they always sort of throw in some little baby, some
Yeah, yeah.
some old lady, you
Yeah.
know, something just to sort of to hype
yeah,
up,
get the public, get the,
to get the real emotion going, right?
And that comes to the next topic. You can see the chief or the mayor saying guns is illegal,
yeah,
but the Constitution says you're allowed to have it.
right,
So there's the two different laws there,
yeah, yeah,
where you know what I'm saying. So they're trying to keep you ignorant of the Constitution
yeah.
by going with all this
Well,
illegal stuff.
illegal, yeah,
So I guess now when you brought that up, because what they're saying is they're planning to not ban guns.
And
Yeah.
just ban the bullets.
ban bullets, yeah,
Which is absolutely crazy.
They want to shut down
Yeah.
bullets. They want
Yeah.
to, but exactly. So
yeah. Like people
it's
can't
more,
get
more
gun
taking
buddies
away
to death
more
or
rights.
something.
And people, and then because something like that, people is like supporting
yeah,
taking away
Right.
their own rights,
right, right.
and don't even know it.
Don't even know that they're
Giving up
in
rights.
conspiracy to take away, get their own rights given up.
Because at the end of the day, what they want is they want the controlling class to have the guns and the bullets, even though they could shut it all down if they wanted to.
For me, one thing I thought is then this happened, so they start showing all these
Pass,
gun activities that have happened
Yeah, yeah.
throughout the time.
yeah,
And then I think, okay, let's say we do a 10-year comparison to see how much people have been shot by citizens or whatever
Yeah.
you want to call them, just regular people, compared to how much people have been shot by police.
right,
If the people can't have guns, which is their constitutional
Yeah.
right, then why
Right,
are
right.
the security walking
exactly,
with guns?
right,
And if you compare to their homeland, say England,
yeah,
police don't walk with guns.
right,
Only if they call in the task force,
Yeah.
then that comes
That's
with
when-
guns.
right.
A regular cop only has a billy club.
And what's interesting, if you notice, the laws there in England are much more stringent if you get caught with a gun.
right.
So that deters
Deters you
people
from,
having guns. Here you have people coming in and out with guns, right?
But that's
I
what
don't
I'm
say
saying.
that's
You
the
can't,
same-
you can't can't take away your constitutional right. Bottom line,
Yeah.
or you can't give it up.
But they
So-
can't get. They
so-
can't give it up.
Yeah, so laws to take guns out of people's hands is taking away their constitutional rights. So that's not the answer.
No,
It's-
but I was just showing you a point of view
Yeah,
where.
but I'm
where
saying
one
if
society-
we are gonna all say okay, nobody have a gun, then that applies to the law enforcement
to
as well.
everybody, yeah.
Because like
Yeah.
I said, if we compare the 10 years, who's killed more people? You're gonna still have a high amount of people who have been
Who
shot,
have been
by, police,
right.
and they were not even armed.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what you realize part of that whole thing with the gun stuff is I think way back we had made decisions like, okay, no, guns. Part of this was institutions like the Ku Klux Klan and the American Gun Rifle
Yeah, right.
Association.
Yeah,
These
NRA.
things that if you notice these things adding time, for example, when the ARF or whatever it's
Yeah,
called
yeah.
was created, was at the very time that the Ku Klux Klan was coming in when they
Right.
were just getting rid of
Yeah.
the guns out of everyone's hands.
Right, right.
So they were putting them back into the elite's hands.
Right.
And that was the end around to the whole end of this whole sort of uprising.
The elites are standing for the Constitution. Whether
Yeah.
you want to call them the Klan or the Rifle
whatever, yeah.
Association, they're standing for rights. It's all these denationalized people who are
That are running the fraud. Yeah.
exactly who are
Yeah.
falling for the let's give up our security.
Yeah.
I'm 100% agreeing with you either way. I just, whatever it is, at the end of the day, it's a sad situation with the gun.
Yeah, it's because again too, like I mean, they're putting it out there like Toronto doesn't have a gun problem. They're making it sound like this was, there's never been a shooting like this ever in Toronto. Like,
It's not like we
This is-
didn't just have, it's like we
You know
didn't
what I
have
mean?
one just 2 weeks ago.
yeah, like they were just shooting, there were just like some people got shot up in the mall just the other day ago. You know what I mean? Not because 19 people didn't get shot in the mall means that it wasn't a bad shooting or whatever. You know what I mean? Right?
If anything, you could say the mall shooting was worse. Because that is like something you wouldn't even, have no guard on.
Yeah.
Being in a blocko, especially in any so-called
Yeah, like
Toronto
you're from back there, you already know.
that
You're not gonna be
this place
chilling, you
gets
know what I mean? Like, this is the Blanco, enjoy the music. You know what I'm saying?
This
Yeah,
is
yeah.
walking through the mall, you know what I mean?
Certain areas, and I would try to be at Blanco after 9 o'clock or whatever. You're getting out of there, yo. You know what I
You
mean?
know what's gonna happen.
You know what's gonna happen already, right?
If it ain't gonna get shut up, then police is gonna come in with horses and whatnot and do their thing then.
Something's gonna go on, right?
Especially if no shooting ain't happening, then that's when the police will come in and start bullying people. They're like, damn, you guys didn't shoot each other yet?
Right? Want to talk about our friends with the fake nation over in Israel. They were in the news today. This is Metro News, July 17, 2012. Handcuffed ultra-Orthodox Jews participate in a protest in Jerusalem on Monday against attempts to draft members of the cloistered community into the Israeli military. Thousands of ultra-Orthodox Jews, including hundreds of children, have been protesting. The government is currently trying to find a formula to obligate ultra-Orthodox Jews who are currently exempt to serve in the military before a court-determined August 1st deadline.
What is exactly what it
Ultra.
Does that mean ultra?
Right?
So there's a
Ultra-Orthodox.
ultra, there's like a just an orthodox one.
Yeah, like, yeah. You know, that
I thought Orthodox would be the highest.
because remember too, right, that all these different branches of Jews are coming out because they know that the people who go and they realize, hold on a second, you guys are Kabbalah and you guys are dealing with ancient Egyptian mysteries and stuff like that. Like, that's not our culture. That's not our culture. We need to go. We need to be some other type of Jews over in this part.
They're already separated. Like there's how many like they're already separated. Like
Yeah.
ultra is like what completely different from all the other.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
from Orthodox.
yeah. Ultra
Orthodox in
Orthodox.
itself is Orthodox.
Right.
Either you are
or you're not, right? But that's how they, they do their game.
You're you doubly
Or
and Orthodox
divided.
like
Yeah,
did like
they do their game. Because once they create, like we're, they're just about creating jurisdiction. Create jurisdiction, and then hope everybody buys it. Then if they buys it, then yes.
Well,
I support
obviously
that
they
issue.
bought it.
Yeah.
Obviously they bought it if it's written in the newspaper.
Yeah.
And every time Orthodox has it, ultra in front of it.
Ultra in front of it, right? There was
It's not
couple.
like that. It's an organization, group of
And they
body
stick
of
together.
Yeah,
politics.
but right.
We
They're-
can't even stick to each other though.
Exactly.
It's-
Right?
I know that.
I see it this morning.
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I see it. I was
Right.
following the story. It's
Right.
great. It's beautiful, and they know what's coming.
Yeah, the principles of it is right in line with where it's supposed to be. Right? I wouldn't go with the ultra orthodox Jews part, because you just canceled your being able to dodge the draft by claiming to be that. If the Israeli military is really on their game, they're gonna say, it's their nationality.
But this is what, for me, is always interesting. And I think back to this other movie, I think it was Good Morning Vietnam, where the news that you get,
Yeah.
the news that gets sent out are two different things.
Two different things,
right? Why is this here for us?
Yeah.
To me, I would want to sit down and think about what is it that's being
Yeah.
said here,
Yeah.
right, on different levels, right?
But
Because-
there's a lot of Jews here too.
Well, that's
Fake
right.
Jews. So it could be a little signal to those people.
A signal on some level, right?
Just a message.
Because you know this, right? To me, at the end of the day, it's the military that runs everything.
Yeah.
Because it's power. So if they want to quash this, like you say, they could be drafting those people.
Yeah.
But maybe they're somehow giving it. Anyways.
Yeah.
It always gives me
There's
reason
way.
to
Yeah.
talk.
But that's the thing with adopting Noble Drew Ali's program, because it allows you to be open to everything, because you don't put up blocks. Oh yeah, the Jews. So we're not gonna read that article because that has nothing to do with us, because we're not them, and they're trying to take over the world with get out of that. Be able to don't have the blinders. Take off those blinders. Once you have the blinders on, you're definitely gonna miss stuff. There was some readings that we had on the site by the prophet that I wanted to go through also before we close out. This one is called "To the Members of the Moor Science Temple of America," and all these are on canaanlandmoors.webs.com. Islam. This is the instruction from your prophet, Noble Drew Ali. Be faithful unto your forefathers' divine and national creed, that you will be blessed for your good deeds that you sow in the flesh. Allah is the one that judges the world, and His judgment is now on. That was 1913. It's still going on right now. But the weak can comprehend it not. The end of time is drawing near. So says Allah to His divine prophet, I, Noble Drew Ali. And that's why many hearts have turned to stone, and many have eyes to see but cannot see, ears to hear but cannot hear, lest they would be confounded of their sins. These are the trying hours now, dear Moors, and every evil spirit is moving, and they are trying every weak mind to overthrow and drag out the true foundation that is being laid, and to cause confusion in the minds of the ones that do believe. But if you have the true love of Allah and the spirit of your forefathers, you fear not what you hear or see, but will sacrifice the utmost of your very life to protect your movement and your prophet. Watch your enemies, dear Moors. Your enemies are the ones that speak against your prophet and ridicule him to the very lowest. and the ones that speak against your divine and national principles of your temples. Act accordingly, and Allah will bless you for your good work. Peace. Your divine prophet, Noble Drew Ali. Islam. And the next one is Foresters Hall, 44th and State Street, Islam. Brother C. Kirkman Bey, this is to notify you that the above named organization, Moor Science Temple of America, in convention September 15th to 20th, rescinded by voting out the mistake made by the second annual convention of 1929, and in so doing you hold your membership roll as when our Prophet was here, and we hope you will still cooperate with the organization under the 5 principles. We hope further that you will comply with this notice and govern yourself accordingly, as there is but one Supreme Grand Advisor in the Moor Science Temple of America, that being Noble Drew Ali, and anyone else attempting to be, from now on, is assuming authority of himself and is liable to the penalties of the law. Peace. And this one, Moor Science Temple of America, Noble Drew Ali, founder, Emili Eel, chairman. And this one is called Dedicated to the Sons of Man. A Mexam, the land of our fathers, the land where the gods love to dwell, the birthplace of the ancient Egypt land, where civilization first saw the light of day. Now since man has left his first religion, he has been suffering from a complex disease, which in some way takes hold of his passions and desires. The misdirection of his brain causes him to become a living monster. He is a slave to his lower self. No scientist nor doctor have been able to find anything to effect a cure until the coming of Prophet Noble Drew Ali, who comes from the east bringing the light of new day, the Moorish divine movement built upon love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, the salvation for the nation. In the deliberation of nations, no consideration is given to a people who are not of a nation. In 1774, the Europeans of this country took the birthrights away from a people whom they forced under bondage. They were not slaves. They were bound free men. The subsequent generation who followed them in this bondage were slaves because their minds had been subjugated to a European psychology. They were branded with the name Negro and were separated from the illustrious history of their forefathers who were the founders of the first civilization. And one of the last readings before you get your little let me get your joy right here. Right, following our leaders. The thousands of Moorish Americans will follow their leaders, regardless of propaganda put forth by those who have designs to hinder them in the work for the advancement of their people. We will not stop to question the requisites, qualifications, nor anything else, so long as our leaders who have investigated and passed on the course of action which we feel is enough endorsement for us to act. We have long known that the first attempt to crush the leaders of any movement or organization is to plant dissension among their followers. We got 5 today? We used to be full, right? Right? Such will never be the case with the Moorish Americans. For when we have chosen our leaders, that within itself tells the world that we are going to follow them. All of the knocks and slams that come from anyone against our leaders will be ignored by us. Where they lead us, we will follow. Any comments on those? I know we never read those before.
Well, for another class, just interesting, like you said, just
There you go.
So
Yeah.
just about seeing how it seems like there has been
Yeah.
a little bit of a valley at this point.
That. We have long known that the first attempt to crush the leaders of any movement or organization is to plant dissension among their followers. This is what we've been seeing.
I don't really think small classes as read too much into that, because I know of many of us that are dead exactly, like,
No, I have no
that are
problem with
real
that.
with it, and some classes are there, some classes are not, because of location, time, or whatever it may be, all sorts of life situations, why people are here or not.
Yeah.
I'm not here a lot, but you know what I mean? Doesn't mean anything. Ain't nobody corrupted me to not be here. I'm here when I can be here.
So, warning from the Prophet, to be read in every meeting, January 15, 1929. I hereby inform all members that they must put an end to all radical and agitating speeches while on their jobs, homes, or on the public streets. We advocate peace and not destruction. Stop trying out your cards with the Europeans, for it causes confusion. There has been much confusion caused by members trying out their cards. The cards are for your salvation. Failure of obeying my orders will be of severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any member or group of members that seek to hold malicious feelings toward the temple or the prophet, or to violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement, will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors must obey the laws laid down to them by their prophet, and if they lose confidence in their prophet, give up your card and button, cease wearing your turban and fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, found you. For this is a holy and divine movement founded by the prophet Noble Jew Ali, and if the prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The prophet is sending out a divine plea to all true Moorish Americans that they may do their part in protecting their prophet and the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. Noble Jew Ali. Islam. And the last reading to be proclaimed every meeting, March 18th, 1929. Islam. I am glad to know that I have a few faithful Moors among you all, and I desire for them to know the truth and the divine truth. There is a host of jealousy about me and the movement by now, by the same people on our side of the nation that claim it was only a joke and unreal. But now, since they have found out from the government officials and the nations of the earth that this is the only sole foundation that all Asiatics must depend upon for their earthly salvation as American citizens, they are working every scheme they can to disqualify me so they themselves may take charge of the situation. I have notified all these things to you long ago in the past. It is through the faithful Moors that attribute to the movement and uplifting funds. The ones that paid their divine respect to me and the movement will be remembered. That is paid their divine respect to me and the movement will be remembered. That is why I am calling upon all faithful Moors to increase their faithfulness to me, your prophet, and your divine Moorish movement. I need finance, and I need it badly. Never before have I needed finance so badly as I do at present, so I can shove aside the discord that is facing the nation. It all comes through jealousy because of my fame and nobility. The nations of the world will not recognize the movement without I, the prophet, being head. It has been proven by my works which I have performed in the last few years. Islam. So just before we close out, just to put the next event on the record there, that we're going to be doing a online debate with this other Moor by the name of Lord Abba, who basically came out and, challenged Canaanland Moors on our authority and what we know and, things that we teach, because he heard that we teach, Prophet Noble Jew Ali taught matriarchy and that the fez is the womb, and he has issues with those stuff.
Oh.
So we're going to be addressing Yeah, we're gonna be addressing those stuff.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
You can't invite me to a lion's den and
yeah, you know what I mean?
The lion's gonna be home.
Right. You know, so that's on the 29th of July. We're gonna be doing it at Flemo. So it's gonna be like a regular Sunday class or whatever, but we're gonna be doing it 4 o'clock, regular class time. Right? Any comments or emotional outbursts? Yeah.
More.
Let's close out with the honors. 5 on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, Father of the universe.
Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth. Peace. Freedom. And justice. Allah is our protection. Our guide. And our salvation. By night. And by day. Through His and her holy prophet. Noble Dua Ali. Amen. Ameen. Ashe. Islam. Islam wars.
We gotta put some chairs in too, right?
It's short or it's